I'm Steve Flanagan, and I'm going to tie a spoon fly using Tuffleye materials. All right, well, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to dress the hook, and this really is the majority of the tying on this fly. And basically what I'm going to do is put thread wraps on here, a good jam knot, and I'll put a little tail with some, made out of some zonker strips, and then I'm going to put a wire weed guard on it, and the tying will be done at that point, and then we'll go into constructing the body. Okay, I'm going to put in just a little bit of a rabbit tail. We're going to keep it relatively thin so that we don't build up too much bulk on the hook shank, because we don't want to have to cover too much of a thick shank whenever we're attaching this to the body of the fly. But you can see I've got a tail on there, and this just adds a little movement to the fly when it's sitting still. When the spoon is being stripped, it'll spin and it'll have its own action, but whenever it stops, this will wiggle a little bit with the current and just give another piece of a reason for a fish to strike it. I'm using some stainless steel trolling wire. This is a coffee colored one, and I think it's 43-pound test, and I just chose it because of the diameter. It's close to the size that I want. I'm using a number 2 34007 hook, and I'm going to bend this material so that I can tie it onto the hook. I'm going to bend it all the way around like this, and then I'm going to take it and I'm going to bend it again straight down. And what this does is it forms sort of a piece that I can tie on the top of the hook shank. This will go through the eye of the hook, and this will come back underneath the hook shank. So I'm going to run it through the eye of the hook, and I'm going to wrap over it and capture it, and I'm going to push it back and make sure that it's seated where I want it, and start wrapping down on it fairly tight. And I think that this just makes the weed guard a little more durable, and it ties it in, it locks it into place. I moved the thread into in front of the weed guard, and now I'm tying down on it real tight, and you can see that it's where I want it to be. It's not going to move, and it's just a little more durable. And here you can throw a few half hitches around the fly just to kind of tie the thread off. This is going to be coated with a product called Tuffleye, so you don't even need to use head cement or anything on it. It's just going to be locked into place in a few minutes. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bend this wire weed guard so that it fits over the hook a little better, and then I'm going to come in and bend it, not really at a 45-degree angle, but close to it, and put a little bend in it so that it goes back over the point of the hook, and then I'll trim off the excess right here so that you end up with a fly or the hook that's been dressed and it's ready to have the body attached. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cast a shell or a body for the fly or for the spoon, and I'm going to use a mold that I made. Dr. Lunt, who owns Wettafly Technologies, the manufacturer of Core, or the Tuffleye product, helped me make this mold. And basically I took an impression of a shape that I liked and molded it, and I'm going to use the core to fill it up and make the body with. And I typically take the tip out because I can get more of the material out faster. And I'm not going to fill this up. I don't want it to be full, because if it's full, then you're going to make it too thick and you're going to add too much to it. So I just put out enough to do what I think would cover the shape very well, and then I'll go ahead and put the tip back in here because we're going to use it again in a few minutes, and lay it aside. And then I use this real fine glitter. It's an ultra fine glitter to make the coloring for the body of the spoon. And I'm going to pour this in here. And you can see that I've got it in there now. And this is a thing that you'll just have to do and develop by feel. I don't know an exact measurement per se, but I'll put it in there and play with it. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to mix this material. And as I mix it, I'm going to drag it around the shape of the mold so that it covers the edges and the inside, and you get an even distribution. And what that's going to do is it's going to form the shape of the spoon. And you can see as you mix it, the gold just kind of blends in with the the Tuffleye material. This stuff doesn't run. It's not like epoxy. It's an acrylic. You can see it won't fall out. And that's why I can get by with putting in less than what it would take to fill up the mold, and I can just work it up the edge of the side like I'm doing with the skewer here, or the bodkin, and it will stay there. And when I come back and cure it with the light, I'll get the shape I'm looking for. And you just, no two are alike, because I mix each one by hand, and I come through and just work it through until I get it painted in where I think it needs to be. Well, it won't run, it'll settle. Like, you can work with it and it'll leave like a line. You can trace a shape in it somewhat, but then it'll settle just a little bit, so it smooths itself out in the mold. But you can see that, you know, the shape is coming around. It gives you a good feel for what it's going to look like. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take the light. It's a blue light. It's not a UV light. And I'm going to cure this. And I'm going to shoot the light on it. I'm going to hold it here for a good 20, 25 seconds in one spot. And then I'll move it a little bit and do the same thing again. What's nice about this is epoxy, you would have a few minutes that you had to work with it. And it would sag and run and stuff, and you would continuously have to pay attention to it. You can make up 3 or 4 of these, set them aside, and then come back and dry them all at once. I'm going to move this down a little bit and make sure that I get it. Because I have it in a mold and I have a material mixed into it, it dries just a little bit slower than it will if it was just the bare material, you know, painted over a flat tying material. The gold glitter blocks the light from going all the way through just a little bit. But it still dries relatively quickly compared to epoxy. I'm going to flip it over now and dry it from the backside. This mold, since it's made, you can make them out of silicone. This is made out of a dental product, a plastic they use for casting teeth. You can shine through it, and it works real well. If you can shoot through from the bottom side, because you dry it from both sides. But what I'll do is I'm even touching the mold with the light. It doesn't hurt it, and it just gets it that much closer. The key to drying Tuffleye is to get as close to the material as you can get with the light without touching it, and it gives it that concentrated burst of energy that it needs to set off the agent to make it dry. When I pull it out of the mold, it's still going to be tacky, and this is because this is a 2-part material and it's looking for the other part. And we found that if you take alcohol swipes, the ones that you can get at the store, and I'll show you in just a second, you can get like a package of 100 for like $2, and you just wipe it off, you get rid of that tacky residue, and then you can work with the body fairly well, and it makes it much easier to handle. Okay, I'm going to stop drying it. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pop this body out of the mold. You got to come in and grab it from the edge and get it to come out. And you can see that it's still just a little bit pliable. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to wipe it off with one of these alcohol wipes and get it ready to mount onto the hook. And before I do that, I like to wipe it off. Get the residue off. As it stands right now, it'll stick to my finger, but once you wipe the residue off, then it won't stick to you, and it accepts other glues willingly. And so I end up with this shape. I have a basic shape that matches the shape that I had in the mold. What I'll do is I'll look at it, and if it looks like it's a little bit uneven, like this one, it seeped over on the edge a little bit, we'll just come in here and trim it just a little. This is still fairly easy to work with at this point, so that I end up with, you know, a nice good spoon body. Wipe it off just a little bit more. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to mount it on the hook shank.